Hello and welcome to another thrilling video of my back wheel. Today we have a 2-hour climb up Mount Teide in Tenerife, which I'm going to break down a bit. It'll probably still be extremely boring, but it was a really enjoyable ascent that hopefully gives you an idea of what it's like. So this climb is from Los Cristianos up Mount Teide to 2,175 meters. The official segment starts at a little over 120 meters elevation, so not much higher than sea level. Also, I function with kind of half the metric system and half imperial, so this video will probably be a complete mess of the two. So there's 3 main routes of Mount Teide, but this is probably the most well-known and the longest. And it's about 32.5 kilometers at 6.4% average gradient, which is the longest climb I've ever done. I started my ride a few miles from the official start and assumed it would just be a nice little spin up to it, but it was actually straight up this drag on a rather unpleasant, busy road with the cars merging from one of the main roads on the island. But luckily, it only gets nicer from here. So the sensations were not good from the get-go. I think riding along this main kind of road makes it seem a lot worse than it is because kind of feels more like a false flat, whereas in reality you're rolling up around a 5-6% gradient. And I just had navigation on my screen to avoid looking at power and any other stats because I only ever really ride to feel. Probably resulted in me riding harder than I thought I was. My goal was just to ride kind of hardish, obviously not a proper full gas effort as it's so long, but a natural tempo climbing pace. I always ride with a rear camera after being involved in a hit-and-run incident a few years ago, and quite enjoy just looking back at the videos and putting them together. Maybe one day I'll get a front-facing camera, but that would require more of an intent to create videos. So there's nothing really remarkable about the first portion of this climb. You're kind of climbing inland, so there aren't great views, and as you can see, you're kind of riding in this hard shoulder. The temperatures are really nice, and I didn't really appreciate at the time how lucky I was with the weather, as it can be really unpredictable as you climb higher, as I found out a few days later. In La Camilla, you make this left turn and things get quite a bit nicer. You have to make a few turns through villages later on as well, but it's all well signposted to El Teide. I started to get into a nice groove and felt a bit less stiff after half an hour or so, which is kind of when the traffic started to drop off as well. And it's a really steady gradient pretty much the whole way, varying between 5 and 7%, so I was flipping between the little and big ring and just trying to stretch out a bit. There goes Jumbo. No waves for me, but I don't really blame them, they're probably freezing. there's this nice section of hairpins after about 10 kilometres, which is where I started to really enjoy the climb. After about an hour, you hit a brief plateau, which is a good opportunity to eat something, maybe stretch out a bit.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants.
So after navigating a few junctions, the road sweeps around and there's a noticeable change in scenery as you leave the remains of a built-up area. So this is actually the Corona Forest Nature Reserve, which actually expands over an area of 46,500 hectares. So it consists of lots of pine groves and mountain vegetation, and it just provides a really quite nice landscape to ride through.
It's an absolutely lovely road to ride on with less traffic and great road surface, and it basically continues like this all the way to the top. Unfortunately, it was somewhere along here with probably about 500 or 600 meters elevation left to climb that I started feeling absolutely awful. I hadn't been breathing particularly hard or anything, but my legs just weren't functioning quite right, and I kind of convinced myself that the altitude was affecting me, which in hindsight can't really be the case because it wasn't even that high up, less than 2,000 meters, and I've ridden higher than that before, like Col de la Bonnet last year, which reaches about 2,700 meters, although I did feel truly awful for the entirety of that, so who knows. Looking back on it, it's probably just a case of bonking, which seems kind of silly considering I'd been riding for less than 2 hours, but I didn't have a single sip of water the entire time, and only about half a gel on that flatter section, about an hour in. And I also hadn't really done a decent long climb since last summer, so my muscles were just kind of locking up, and it just felt really bizarre. Like every time I tried to stand up, my arms would just get all numb and weird. The temperatures had also dropped a bit, but as you can see, it's still pretty warm. I kind of had that weird sensation where you don't feel cold, but you have a few goosebumps. Instead of drinking and eating a bit like an intelligent person, I just kept trying to ride along at the same pace, although I was obviously dropping off quite a lot. It's quite a shame because this was a really nice stretch of road that I wasn't fully enjoying. And for the last 10 minutes or so, I was just kind of in this weird survival mode, and yeah, every time I tried to stand up, I thought I was just gonna flop over, and I stopped waving back at people, which is a bad sign.
I'll just rattle off some stats now as I don't have much footage near the end of the ride. So this ended up being an average of 220 watts for an hour and 47 minutes. So that's around 4.5 watts per kilogram. Don't really know if that's good or not. As I've said before, I don't really pay attention to power anyway. And it's quite a significant amount longer than any serious efforts I've done. But I wasn't really trying to, find my absolute limit up a 7,000 foot climb. So I'm happy with how it went. I enjoyed it, and that's all you can ask for, really. Obviously I made a few beginner mistakes in terms of fueling, probably made it a lot harder for myself than it ought to have been. But it was also nice to finish the climb just feeling absolutely knackered. Ideally I would have finished it just as knackered, but have gone a bit faster and prevented the little bonkage flip. It was a bit of a slow peter at the end, but all in all, cool climb, cool change of scenery, and lots of fun. Also sorry for the poor quality of the editing of this video. I spend the whole day editing videos for work, so I don't have much drive to continue doing that afterwards because I'm lazy. Oh, here I go, revving it up for a massive 200 watt sprint. Just kidding, can't even do that. Sit back down. There's kind of a few false summits where the road flans a bit, but there's a Teide sign to mark the official top, and then the road gently rolls downwards.
I didn't save all the footage from here, but the road opens up into a super cool volcanic landscape and reaches a junction where you can take it right to the Parador Hotel, which is where all the pros stay when they come here for altitude training. I continued along the stretch to start the descent towards Los Gigantes, and while the sun was out, it was quite chilly still, and because I'm an absolute idiot and just didn't really think it through, especially after overheating the previous day, I was just carrying the thinnest waterproof in existence, so the descent was pretty unenjoyable despite being a really non-technical, really nice road, and I kept having to stop because I felt a bit dizzy. And I ended up stopping, pulling over on the side of the road, and waited to get a lift the rest of the way down because I really thought I was just going to topple off the handlebars. Even though I only had about 20 minutes left of descending, so I just chilled in the sun for a while, which was lovely. This is all totally preventable, but I'm an idiot.
Thanks for watching this pretty terrible video. I hope it's inspired you to go to Tenerife and tackle this wonderful hill. Thank you. Bye.